G'day everyone and welcome back to another video here on the channel, and today we're going to be going through my round 4 AFL tips and predictions, as well as seeing how I did in the previous round, being round 3. I hope you all do go on to enjoy this video, and if you do, could you please show me that by liking the video as well as subscribing to the channel if you guys are new. Enough wasting your time, let's just get straight into it. Now before we do get into everything, I'm just going to quickly let you guys know that I do have a tipping comp for the 2025 season. We're currently at 66 members, so let's try and get to 70 members as soon as we can. Currently in third place is Gus Footy with 23 points and a 75 margin. In second place is Deadfish Paul with 23 points and a 74 point margin. And in first place is Mr. Bigger with 23 points and a 54 point margin. Now, if you just don't already know the prize pool for this tipping comp, third place is $15, second place is $30, and first place, the grand prize, is $100. So what are you doing? Join now, link in the description. I had an alright week of tipping this week. I got 6 out of 8 tips correct. The tips I got incorrect was Essendon v Port on the Thursday night. The only reason I backed in Port Adelaide is because of recent form. I just felt like Essendon probably weren't the greatest team in the world. In hindsight, it was at Marvel Stadium, so you probably should have tipped them. But nonetheless, I guess in future weeks, I know for a fact that Essendon are definitely a shout at winning. And the other game I got incorrect was Carlton v Bulldogs. I actually attended this game, believe it or not. Carlton, it was their home game. Both teams were relatively similar skill-wise. I think Bulldogs were favourites going into it, but I don't think it was by that much. I thought it was going to be an interesting game, but yeah, unfortunately, the Bulldogs just got on top. I think it was by a goal. Now moving on to the reason that you guys actually clicked on this video, being my tips and predictions for this round of football. On the Thursday night, we have the Carlton v Collingwood clash at the MCG at 7:30 PM. This is one of the biggest rivalries currently in the AFL. The Blues currently 0-3, while the Pies are 2-1. Against the Bulldogs in round 2, which was Collingwood's last game, Nick Dacos racked up a total of 39 disposals, and new recruits Harry Perryman, Dan Houston and Tim Membry are doing exactly what the Pies were hoping for. Perryman has a disposal average of 17 and Dan Houston has a disposal average of 21, and out of the 3 games Tim Membry has played for this club so far, he's already kicked a total of 5 goals. The Blues, on the other hand, they kept it relatively close in round 2 against the Hawks, where they lost by 20, but after losing to Richmond in round 1, it's just not looking good for them in any game at all. And they choked last week against the Bulldogs after having a really dominant lead at quarter time, but I can't deny that Nick Haynes has been looking really good for them. They'll definitely be happy with picking him up. Charlie Kerner, he's finding a bit of form once again after kicking 3 goals last week. Cripps, he's starring in the midfield as always. It's almost about time the Blues do win that first game of the season, but you know what, I'm still going to back my Collingwood Magpies to get the job done, and I think it'll be a 5-point thriller. Now moving on to the Friday, we have Geelong taking on Melbourne at 7:40 PM at the GMHBA Stadium. In my opinion, this is one of the easier tips of the rounds, and there's no real reason to overthink this game. The Cats have only won a single game this year, and Melbourne are still yet to win any. It's 2 weeks in a row that the Cats have lost in close games, after losing to the Lions by 9 points last week and against the Saints by 7 the week before that. The last 2 weeks for Melbourne have been pretty rough after losing by 55 plus the last 2 weeks, and in round 1 against the Giants they lost by 3 points. Clayton Oliver and Chris Petrarca have been really good for the Melbourne Demons in that midfield, but unfortunately just not good enough to make the game change. And Bailey Smith is an absolute gun for the Cats, and I'd probably say he'll be their best and fairest player. But as I said earlier, there's no real reason to overthink this tip, and I'll go the Cats to win the game by 34 points. To kick off the Saturday, we've got the Gold Coast Suns taking on the Adelaide Crows at People's First Stadium, and they'll be at 1:20 PM. Now we're talking. Both teams are currently undefeated, with Adelaide winning their first 3 games of the season and Gold Coast winning 2. So I suppose you could say both teams are very good and are quite in form. Gold Coast won both of their games by over 50 points, with their first win of the season being against West Coast, where they won that by 87 points, which was the biggest winning margin they've had in their club history. And altogether, throughout those 2 games, Ben King has been able to kick a total of 10 goals already. Anderson's averaging 35 disposals a game, while Matt Rowell is averaging 33. Well, Adelaide's Josh Rochelle is likely to miss this week after kicking a total of 6 goals so far for the club. But that's okay, as they do still have Phil Thorpe and Fogarty, who have kicked a combined total of 18 goals, and Saligo and Laird averaging 28 disposals a game. Both sides' defence is looking really good, as shown in previous weeks, but I think at home, in front of their home crowd, the Suns will probably get up by 2 goals. Next up, we have Richmond versus Brisbane at the MCG at 4:15 PM. I understand this game's at the MCG, but I'd be pretty shocked if the Brisbane Lions lost this one. This should be a field day for them. I know the Tigers got that 1 win against Carlton, but I wouldn't be shocked if that's their only win of the season. Brisbane, they're the reigning premiers. They haven't shown any signs of a premiership hangover, as they are currently undefeated, which is why I'm going to back them to win this game. I'm not going to get too into detail, but they'll win the game, I think, by maybe 44 points. To conclude the Saturday night, we have North Melbourne versus Sydney at Marvel Stadium, and the time stance for that will be 7:35 p.m. Now, the Swans probably should get up during this game, but it's really hard to rule North Melbourne out of this game after recent form, especially when it's being played at Marvel Stadium as well. They've both only won one game this season, but so far all of the Swans' losses have been close games. They lost by 3 points last week, and the week before that they lost by 4. In their first game of the season, they lost by 20 against the Hawks. While besides North's win against Melbourne, they've been smashed in both of their losses. So I will tip Sydney to win, but I think North will have a slight bit of hope at some stage late in the game, and I think maybe Sydney will only win by 18 points. Now moving on to Sunday, we have GWS versus West Coast at 1:10 p.m, and that is at NG Stadium. In my opinion, there's a fair few games this round that you should not be getting the tip incorrect, with this game being one of them. The Eagles are currently bottom of the ladder while the Giants are undefeated. I mean, there's really no shock considering how appalling the Eagles have been. They lost to the Suns by 87 points, lost to the Lions by 19, and lost to Freo by 38 points in the Derby last week. Actually, I was mistaken. The Giants are not actually undefeated. They've got 2 wins and 1 loss, but I think they'll win this week, especially with it being their home game. I think it'll be an absolute thrashing. They'll have a field day. They'll win the game by 41 points. Next up at 3:20 p.m, we have the St Kilda Saints travelling up to Adelaide to face off against Port Adelaide at the Adelaide Oval. Did I say Adelaide enough in that sentence? Now this is where the round gets a bit more interesting. Now the Power do have the overall advantage with it being their home game. The Saints did play at the Adelaide Oval just 3 weeks ago, where they lost to the Crows by 63 points. The last 2 weeks, the Saints have definitely been able to prove themselves, and they've shown that they are actually in finals contention in 2025 after defeating the Cats by 7 points and defeating the Tigers by 82. Higgins and Owens are averaging 3 goals a game currently, and new recruit Jack McRae has been an absolutely outstanding midfielder for the Saints, with him having an average of 33 disposals. They've only won 1 game this season, which was against Richmond, but Rosie and Wines have certainly been able to step up over the last few weeks despite them losing. Jordan Sweet's been doing surprisingly well on the ruck. Despite the Power losing last week, Mitch Georgiades was certainly on his A game after kicking 2 goals, 1 I think, and also took an absolute hanger. I think this will be a close game, probably one of the closer games of the round, and based on recent form, I've got to back the Saints to win the game by 8 points. The real question is just, can they play it away? Their 2 wins of the season have been home games. They could do something similar to what Gold Coast did last year, where they could win at home, just could not win away. And to conclude this round of football, we have Fremantle versus the Bulldogs at Optus Stadium, and that'll be at 5:10 p.m. Freo were fresh off a win last week in the Derby against West Coast. I believe they won that by 38 points, where Caleb Sarong took home the Best on Ground award for, I believe, his 4th time in his career. And the Dogs coming off a close win against Carlton on the Friday night last week. Isaiah Dudley made his debut for Fremantle, where he kicked 2 goals in his first game. We haven't really seen anything from Shea Bolton just yet, and some people are questioning whether or not the trade was worth it. Both sides have had a very similar start to the season, and it could honestly be a close game, this one, but it's at Optus. And as I said in my later predictions, I do think Fremantle are going to have a good season this year, and it looks like they're starting to get into the hang of things, so I'm going to tip them to win the game by 25 points. And that will wrap up today's video, everyone. I hope you all did enjoy. Sorry if I'm not too energetic today, I am feeling a bit sick, but nonetheless, I've got to get this tipping video out for you guys. Hope you all did enjoy, and I hope to see you all in the next video that I post here on the channel.